Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about children and with dogs. Children's with dogs. Goodness. I brought back Drew because I truly enjoyed the last time we were talking about animal behavior. So now we are just diving deeper into the concept of children with dogs. So all of my parents out there, all those guardians, all of those individuals that are just, I don't know how to think about this. Well, no worries. This is your perfect time to really think about this with Drew so that we can really think about it. So, Drew, thank you so much for coming on to my show and sharing your time again. I really am honored to have you again. So, when you hear this topic, children with dogs, what does that make you think about?
Yeah. So first, thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed our last conversation as well. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to come back and talk a little bit more. Um, really, I guess when I think about kids with dogs, a lot of times, because I'm a dad too. I have two boys. And I've always had dogs. So, I've kind of been through, from a parent perspective, this whole how do we introduce the kids with the dogs? How do we make sure that we aren't having issues with either aggression or jealousy or pulling on tails and all the things that you think about with kids. And it's different as you hit different ages, that you have to kind of think about both ages for the dog and ages for the kids.
Yeah.
Um, because the first thought is always, well, we're having a baby. How do we introduce the baby? How do we do those things? And that's honestly probably when it comes to kids and dogs, that's probably the one that I get maybe the most calls on of how do we introduce the baby? How do we make sure we don't have these bad behaviors when we have our kid come in? Um, so there are really a lot of aspects of that initial introduction that's so important. We want to share our baby and our life with our dogs, and because this is going to be the family. So really a big part, I think, is that initial introduction. You'll hear a lot of times, which I don't disagree with, before you even bring the baby into the home or, before you first come into the house, if you can, bring one of the hospital blankets and let the baby get good smell of the blankets. And so we start getting the scent and a little bit of familiarity with just the baby from the start. It's um, making sure that when we do kind of get there, we let the dog know that this baby is our baby. Like this is ours. So we're going to keep a calm meeting. We're going to keep where we're holding, we're guarding, we're not letting the dog jump up. We want the dog to associate calmness initially with the baby in a comfortable and a relaxed kind of a thing. So sometimes, even before, and I'm just speaking day of, right?
Yeah.
Even before we bring the baby out, maybe somebody goes and we let the dog out and we go for a nice long walk. We burn off a little bit of energy. We have a little bit of playtime, or we've, done some things to kind of help bring the dog's mental state down in general. And then we do a slow, gradual introduction, just peacefully and calmly. And there's so many little nuances and little details that I could go into, but obviously for sake of time and keeping this thing rolling, I don't want to dig too deep.
No, I
Um,
love it. I love it because I think you tapped on all of these great details, especially when it comes to those expecting families that are already they have a baby in the womb and still and they're trying to figure out, oh, do I have to get rid of my dog now? I mean, he was my baby for the longest, and now I have a real baby coming in. Like, how do I handle that? And I think you touched on it great by introducing the baby slowly, I mean, to the dog by bringing their scent, bringing the blanket first. As soon as the baby gets born, they wrap them around that little blanket from the hospital. When the dad leaves to go check on the house and, make sure everything's still running and walk the dog real quick, is the perfect time to have that scent be brought in because that is what I did when when I had my first son, and we had our my Chinese Shar at the time, and we brought him the blanket. We let him put it in the cage or put it or like in his area so he can smell it. And luckily, he was a very calm dog anyway, so he wasn't one to jump or to get onto things anyway. So I knew that it was okay. But I did exactly like you said. I took him on a walk first, made sure that he was associated, make sure I showed him love first so that he knows that I'm not neglecting him because, he doesn't know exactly what's going on still. So he expects that love from the parent that's, you're the owner, the guardian. So when you have that child, you want to make sure that you are gentle, you are calm, and you make those boundaries and that respect apparent so that they know because at the end of the day, they see you as alpha. So since you're alpha, you have to control the area of your home. You have to make sure that that dog knows that you will still protect him along with yourself and this baby. And then you show him and you like present him like like Lion King, like, oh, there it goes. You know what I mean? You have that little moment of Simba. So it is very precious. And I also loved how you talked about like when it comes to different ages, it comes to different dealings with the dogs and dealings with the children as
Yeah,
well. And I think that is something really apparent, I mean, really important for us to really consider as well, because you are not going to treat a newborn baby the same way a toddler or a child that's 7, 8 years old who has more conscious awareness. You know what I mean?
right.
So, I guess for those individuals that have toddlers and, you know what I mean, wants to have that bonding moment or make sure that, that their children don't develop allergies, they bring a dog in, you know what I mean, so that they can already get familiarized. You know what I mean? How would you recommend those parents dealing with children that are in that toddler stage?
Yeah, it's a great question. First, before I jump there, I just want to hit back really quick on the infant side. I do want to kind of, I guess, expand a bit on some of what you were saying as far as offering the baby, kind of like the Lion King. That actually is not something I want to do. I don't want to
Oh,
present the baby to the dog. I want if I have my baby, I'm gonna hold that baby and I'm gonna let the dog kind of calmly. I want that dog to be able to sit and just be kind of relaxed and you can scent and you can smell and you can do it because that's where the dog is learning everything through the smell. Um, and then I may have a seat and let the dog come over. I may let the dog come a bit closer and smell. But I'm still maintaining the baby in my space, in my area, so that I'm signifying, look, I got this. I want you to check it out. And even if I sit, I'm letting the dog come over. I'm not ever offering the baby to the dog, but I am letting the dog gradually come in and sit. I'm not forcing this introduction. Our dog is naturally going to be pretty curious. So,
yeah.
but I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let him gradually come in and get comfortable and check it out. Okay, I got a smell. We're good. All right, I'm out. And let them kind of have that freedom to flow, but not come in and bombard and attack and be
Yeah.
all not attack in a violent in an aggressive
Yeah,
way, but
yeah, I
just
know what you
the
mean.
overbearing jumping kind of stuff. So
Yeah, that
um,
excitedness.
yeah, so I want the dog to always have that understanding that we're here. I'm in, this is my baby. This is not prey because sometimes those sounds of a newborn can, trigger some prey drive. Have
Yeah.
your dog on a leash during this whole interaction so that you can control and guide if you need to in that scenario, so you don't have to wrestle and partner up, mom, dad, work together on the introductions, but keep it calm. Keep it relaxed. Don't go over the top. Don't work the dog up. Let it be a calm, easy greeting. And now shifting. Now, truth be told, with the toddlers and as kids get up and moving around, that presents a whole new set of challenges because again, you have the dog that may trigger that prey drive as the baby is wobbling and moving around, and now we're in the walker and we're rolling around. So now the dog, depending on the dog, not every dog has that hard prey drive, but where we're wanting to chase and we're wanting to herd this baby.
Yeah.
So you have to. I tell people all the time through all kinds of training, not just this. You want to be able to control a scenario, not just react to a scenario.
I
So,
like that.
set up. this is how we're going to meet. So it's not only for the dog, but it's really, really important that the kids learn how to interact with a dog, what's appropriate with a dog. We shouldn't be pulling on his tail, pulling on his ears, slapping at it, getting all in his face and doing all of these things, right? We're setting ourselves up to fail doing that stuff. Not
Yeah.
every dog is going to give a response to that may be negative, but it's better not to take the chance, and it's
Yeah.
better to teach the kid that this is not how we interact with a dog, because this may be the neighbor's dog. It may be their friend's dog. It may be some strange dog that wanders up into the yard that's not going to be okay with that. So sometimes just how we treat our own dog is not how we can interact with every dog. And so
Yes.
but that's tough as a toddler. It's very tough
Yeah.
as a toddler.
Yes.
Um, so I think it's just honestly a lot of it is just being really conscious of how we're allowing these interactions to take place. Um,
Oh yeah, I love
and try to make them calm, try to make them, relaxed. And it's there's, you see these videos and photos and things all the time through social media and probably a lot of our friends, where they've got an infant or a toddler or a little one just laying all over this dog, and they'll have the baby swaddled and leaning up against the dog, right? And now the dog trainer in me cringes when I see this because of what could potentially go wrong. Even if
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing at all, and the dog just gets up and moves, and the baby falls on the floor. Like those are the things that I think about when I see those. Although it's adorable, it's cute. To be quite frank, you can go back and look through my social media from years and years ago before I was even training. I've got photos like that with my boys and our dogs at the time. So I mean, I've been guilty of it as well. But it's sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't really think about it.
Yes.
And so now, when we talk about these things, for me, I just want really just a level of awareness that these are potentially challenging things. And so, we want to teach our kids how to interact with a dog, even from a small age. They can learn, what is okay and what's not. But you still have to be the parent. You still have to be vigilant. You still have to be, the dog's caretaker, and you're advocating for your dog just as much as you are for your kid. You don't want either one hurting the other, because both it can go wrong, and sometimes it's not even the dog's fault, although the dog will always be the one to get the blame. So just being conscious of those things, that how could this go wrong? You know,
Yeah.
um,
I
you
think
know,
that's a valid point because because I know exactly what you mean. Like you really have to pay attention. You know what I mean? As a parent, we have to look at both sides of the spectrum. You know what I mean? We can't really just think, oh, well, my dog would never do that. Well, technically, you don't know. You know what I mean?
right,
And I also love the fact that you talked about knowing the difference of the dog breed because if your dog is naturally hurting and then they like, oh, well, they're gonna just hurt all the you know what I mean? The child, you know what I mean? That's something that you have to take into consideration, because if you have an outside dog and then you bring him in around your baby that's a toddler and then he's trying to figure out a walk and he has a stroller and he rams his foot, what is he going to do? Is he going to attack? You know what I mean? Is he going to, you know
right,
what I mean? You
yeah,
have to have that understanding and to put those boundaries in place. And I think that's one thing that I did with my dogs, especially when my children were at the very young, learning how to walk, learning how to discovering, pulling, grabbing thing. Like I made sure that the dog was in one area versus my children was in another area because I at the end of the day, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know if something may trigger my dog because that has happened before. I thought that my son was just playing under the table. He was just fine doing his thing. The dog was just laying by my husband's feet, no problem. And then all of a sudden I hear my dog growl and come at my son and I'm just like, whoa, what is going on here? What happened? And I don't know. There's no cameras under the table. I have no idea what happened. You know what I
right,
mean? Like my son could have accidentally poked his eye or did something. We don't know. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
at that point I realized, you know what, it's better for my peace of mind knowing that the dogs are separated from my child at this point, and when they get older, well then we can go forward from there and move things and adjust things accordingly. And I think that's one thing is that I love that you said is that you have to advocate for both ends. You know what I mean? You have to affect both, and because the dog will always get blamed, like you said. I mean, there's in movies that they display where the dogs gets sent to an adoption center because an accident or a miscommunication or a misunderstanding happened. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
there's so many variables at plays that we can't always control, but we can control the circumstance when you do it smartly. You know what I mean? You do it smart.
yeah,
And I think that's one thing that a lot of the times people don't understand is that we have to be consciously aware, you know what I mean, of our surroundings. And if you have that team efforts, that partner with you, you know what I mean, your spouse, you know what I mean, have them be more consciously aware. Make sure that everyone is participating, especially if you have older children, you know what I mean? So, diving into the older children, how would you like manage older children when it comes to dogs?
yeah. Honestly, it's really very similar. It's not that huge of a change.
Yeah.
It's especially a lot of times too. If again, you have a couple of different scenarios. You have a dog that's been with a kid growing up, and they kind of age together. So the dog sees this kid get older, and so there's usually sometimes a different comfort level with
Yeah.
that, and how they're going to be interacting, because they learn together as they grow. And then you've got a scenario where we have a kid, and now we're bringing this new dog in, and then there's the introductions and some of that. So, but honestly, it's really a lot of the same. It's teaching the kid as the children get older. It honestly becomes easier, because now we can explain things with them. We can teach them a little bit more on what their role is, what's okay, and how they should interact and respond and react to different things. But the same rules still apply. Don't pull his tail. Don't pull his ears. Don't do all these things to intentionally antagonize.
Yeah.
We talk about, like, don't get right into his face. That's probably one of the biggest ones uh, that I see is we're right in the dog's face, and people will do it all the time, and a lot of times because you can do it with your own dog, but they're doing it with the neighbor's dog, or they're doing it with the new dog that they just got, and for some dogs it's fine. It's not ever going to be an issue, but a lot of dogs aren't gonna like that. Being right there,
Hmm.
and then you're right in the danger zone. I mean, you're the closer you are to the teeth, the more opportunity they have to actually get you with them. So you want to be conscious of those interactions. Because a dog that kind of, as you said, a dog that may never bite, may never snap, may never do anything, if they are extremely afraid, or maybe cornered, or really uncomfortable in this scenario, or injured, those are the things that a dog will bite. And a dog is always a dog. And there's, even though with a lot of dogs the likelihood is low, it's never zero.
Yeah.
There's still always that chance. There's a statistic out there, and I think we may have kind of briefly touched on it in our last conversation, but 77% of children will at some point in their life be bitten by a dog.
Wow.
Most of the time, it's their own dog. Um, and it's because a lot of times it is that improper interaction. So, the big things when we work on things, we have a program that we offer in various schools and different areas, um, where we are working with kids on how to interact with the dog. And so, it's the simple things, like, don't get, like I've said a million times, don't get right in their face. If we're going to pet collar to tail, along that body area. A lot of dogs, just in general, don't like to be petted on the head. They don't like you reaching over the top. It's not that they've been abused or there's something wrong or anything like that. A lot of dogs just don't like that reaching over the top. They're head shy. It makes them uncomfortable. So, but they're perfectly fine if you'll pet along the side. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
so things like that, of how to interact. And then again, on the parents, it's helping control scenarios. It's helping to set up things so that the children and the dog have a chance to learn and understand what's appropriate and how we react.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, our dogs will see our kids as litter mates. They're the playmates. So really, a lot of time a dog is trying to play, but it gets too rough. And
Hmm.
I see all the time that a lot of kids don't like that if the dog is jumping and we get scratched or we get, especially puppies, we get a really mouthy, and so puppy teeth are like razor blades, and so
Hmm.
you know it's kind of awful. So now we control how we're letting that playtime happen.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a huge advocate of, especially as we're teaching and guiding our dogs and introducing new things and new environments. Put them on the leash so
yeah.
that you have control of what we're doing. That's your direct line of communication. If in to your point earlier, if we've got our kids running around as toddlers in the stroller, or not the stroller, but
Walker,
the
yeah.
walker, or the little bouncy things or the
Yeah.
slings, let put your dog on a leash while the little one's playing, and make them stay right beside you in the floor or on the couch, and you're controlling their movement. They're able to be out and be a part of what's going on and observe and see. And now it becomes boring. It becomes not a big deal. It becomes, this is just what this baby does. So it's
Yeah.
not that we have to always separate out and you can't be a part of this. It's, you can be a part of this if you act this way,
Yeah.
and then it becomes just normal to the dog. It's not as big of a deal. And if we do get a reaction, we do get a lunge, we do get any of those things, whether it's aggressive or overly excited or too playful, we have our leash, and we can stop that immediately and guide the dog back to what it is actually supposed to do and how to have an appropriate interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Is the
love
big
that.
thing.
Yeah, because I don't think a lot of people even realize um we are the ones in control. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, those dogs look to us, the owners, as the
Yes.
one to teach them, to guide them, to help them understand what is happening. Like, this is a new change, and especially when it comes to a new dog that's maybe older or maybe young, whatever the age may be, when you bring them into their home, you do have to get them accustomed to the way that you move, the way your routine is, the way that the noises, you know what I mean? They may have come from a home that was more rowdier or more quiet, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like it's that us assimilation in is so important, and I love the fact that you teach kids how to interact with dogs, because I think that's so important. And I love the fact that you brought up that statistic about how people and children get bit by dogs. That's so true. My niece was over at my sister's house, and she got bit by her dog. But it was only because and I told her this. I told my sister, I was like, listen, you keep your dogs away and locked up, because she just gave birth and she should not be exposed to all these people when she just gave birth. She's in a very vulnerable state of mind. She's going to be in protective mode. Don't have her exposed. And if you're gonna take her out to go potty, make sure everybody's away so that has a clear direction to go to the bathroom, or put her on the leash so you can guide her out. But she didn't do that. What did she do? She thought everything was fine. She thought everything was gonna be okay. So when my niece came to touch her, thinking that it was gonna be a problem, she didn't realize that she was still in that defense mode and bit her. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I knew this was gonna happen, and I that's the reason why I moved my sons the way that I did, because I knew that was gonna happen. But she didn't have that sense of control. You know what I mean? She thought, oh, she had that trust. And I think that's the thing, is that as adults, we need to know that we're dealing with an animal. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, this is an animal that's going to
Right.
react differently, act differently, think differently, move in a different way, and it's about their survival. You know what I mean? And it's that state of mind. And it's like, when we set these dogs up to succeed, then everybody else succeeds. Everybody
Right.
has a good understanding and a good experience. And now my niece is terrified of dogs. Now she just don't even want to go near dogs anymore. And I
Yeah.
understand why. Now she has this trauma that now she just thinks all animals are bad. So it's like when she comes to my house, she's like, Didi, you don't have a dog anymore, right? And I'm like, no, baby, my dog died, but I have a cat. And I do exactly like you said, only from the back down to the tail. Don't touch its face. And she was able to start accumulating this understanding, like not every animal is the same, and I think that's the thing, like we
Right.
need to have this understanding that not every animal is the same, but every animal can react the same. Every animal can react in a way that they feel the need to protect themselves. As we
Yeah.
as human beings get in that mode of protection,
Right.
we also have to have that understanding that these animals will also have that as well. So I think that is truly empowering for the adults that are listening in, considering what exactly they should do in this part. It's like, be aware, have that conscious awareness, understanding boundaries and that respect. And I also love the fact that you talked about like putting on this on the leash. You don't always have to separate them from the baby gates, you know what I mean? From upstairs and downstairs, keeping them always separated. You can also have that interaction because once I got my dog like accustomed on that, because I did that leash thing as well, and I had him stay by my side so I can watch him and stay with him while I'm interacting with the boys. He actually noticed that my son was slipping off of the couch, and he went to go nudge him back up, and he helped him. You know what I mean? So it's just like those
Right.
little things can change where they're like, oh, okay, let me help you, and they do these little things, and they do these little
Oh
nudges.
yeah.
So it's like a beautiful moment because then you're like, oh, they care. You know what I mean? They care in a sense, or they know that they are part of this family. Like, this is
Yeah.
my family dynamic. This is my unit. And that's what my dog was able to realize, is that those boys are my boys. You know what I mean? You protect these boys, you love these boys, you care for these boys. And if they hurt you, you come to me. And my son, my dog, literally, whenever like my son would just accidentally pull his ear a little bit too much, he would give him this like okay, get away, and then give me this look, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And then I'll like love him, and then I'll tell my son, like, you don't do that. You know what I mean? You have to have this awareness, this communication, and just be really open. And man, it sucks that time is catching up to us, Drew, because man, we can keep
Yeah.
diving down this conversation in so many different directions. But what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep thinking?
I think probably the big things is, when it comes to your dogs and your kids, it definitely let them interact, let them be a part of each other's lives. Even though, we talk about, you want to do it in a controlled, safe way, but we want it to be in a way where they actually can enjoy one another. And, this is our family. Our dogs are huge parts of our family, obviously, like our kids are, and we're all in this together, but we have to, both of them, both sides, including our own, we have to learn what is our role in this family. How do we interact with one another as a family? How do we communicate together as a family? How do we take care of one another? And we want to enjoy each other. We want to have fun. We want to be able to play. We want to be able to do all these things, but we have to do it in the right ways. And that's probably the biggest part. So but I would also say, from the cautionary side, don't always just assume that everything is going to be okay and that everything is going to be fine. As you said, set everybody up for success by taking little steps to control these scenarios and interactions. And then we earn those freedoms. We earn those times because now we can trust each other because
Yeah.
we've proven that we can. And
Yeah.
so, I agree. There's so many things and so much time that we could go, and obviously, I'm always happy to come back and talk about more and more and more things. So, or even expand more on this. So,
I know, right?
I
It's gonna
love
be
I
an
love having
excuse to
the
bring you
opportunity to
back.
talk about it. Yeah, perfect. I'll take it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Please go check out Drew. Go check out our last conversation about animal behavior, and go check out his website. Oh man, does he have so much great content on there? Ways for you to continue on thinking. And if you wanted some advice, want a little tip, or you have just a little, maybe just a question, you know what I mean? Nothing wrong with having a curious mind, just to be on the more cautious side. Nothing wrong with that. Please go check out Drew, hit him up, message him. He has access, a way for you to just reach out to him directly, just so that you can have that sense of peace of mind, that sense of security, that sense of knowing that you are already thinking about it in the right direction. You probably are in the right direction, but you just probably need that little nudge, you know what I mean, just to get
Yep.
you right in that place. So go check him out, reach out to him. And hey, you never know, there might be another episode, another ways for us to continue on thinking with Drew. So if anything, just keep thinking, y'all. Bye.